What is up, everybody? I am your host, Shane Mallard, joined by my co-host,
Ricky DaCosta.
And what time is it?
Hey, run that joint back.
Hey, man, it is time to run it back. Episode 12. Listen, guys, it's going to be another shorter episode for you. Holiday times, time constraints, unfortunately. Couple of weeks here, look, shorter shows. Don't worry, though. We are always going to bring you that content hot and heavy. Could be a much more football-heavy week, right?
But you know where they can find us, though, right?
Oh, I know exactly. Well, first of all, tell them to...
Right, like
comment, subscribe, right?
Hey, but get those comments, right? You know what I mean? I mean, listen, they can slide in the DM,
Get
too,
into those
right?
comments. I have a feeling after today I'm going to be getting hit on both sides. I'm going to get hit by Giants fans. The ownership might come after me after what I have to say. And
so nobody sliding into your DMs.
I also have to. I think when we talk about the Cowboys too, I mean, you and Shawnee over in production are fawning over the Cowboys.
Whoa! Slow down. Hey, just because I'm an honest man doesn't mean I'm fawning over anyone.
Yeah.
I said I would call it like I see it, and I've called it like that. Now you, a little biased, a little hater.
No, it's. I'm gonna actually call it like I see it. When you beat a team that's over 500, I'm gonna give you.
So I'm gonna say it right now. A Cowboy will be your stud of the week. If you're an honest man, a Cowboy will be your stud of the week.
No, because here's the thing about my stud of the week.
I said it, America.
Stats are a part of it, but also it's the totality of the moment. Who were the stats against, and what did you go and do too? The game matters too as well. But I digress. We will get there soon. Right. Let's talk about the game that happened last night. Talking the Bills versus the Broncos. I had to rewatch it again this morning just to go through some of those things.
You actually rewatched that game?
I did.
That disaster of a game you rewatched?
I'll give you my honest concern right now. I'm genuinely just concerned about the Bills because I watch them and I look at a team that just doesn't seem to have an identity right now. And I'm going to call it like I see it. If I'm going to come after Dak, for some of his, inadequacies in big games at moments and times right now, it's really showing up for Josh Allen right now. I mean, these turnovers are rearing their ugly head. And I don't care if you lead the league in touchdowns, if you also lead the league in turnovers. He's kind of like a modern-day Brett Favre, but the only difference is Brett Favre at least had some of the hardware to go with it. And listen, this is not me trying to poo-poo Josh Allen. I think he has tremendous talent. Otherworldly athletic ability. He's got a cannon for an arm, but the decision-making is becoming a big problem. And he's put his team now in kind of like dire straits in terms of, in all likelihood right now, looking at it right now, it just doesn't look like a team that's going to make the playoffs.
I mentioned it in episode 2 after they lost to the Jets, that there were some problems going on in Buffalo.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was separate from the turnovers, the offensive scheme. There was some fraction in that locker room.
For sure.
As a big example, take a look at Trayvon Diggs, his tweet. What did he say? Hey, get number 14 out of there. Right? STEFON DIGGS. That's his brother.
Yeah.
They've had to have that conversation.
He's saying get him 14 and saying get him out of Buffalo.
Get him out of Buffalo. Yeah. And he's got to be saying that. Therefore, right, STEFON is
come to Dallas.
What?
That's probably what he wants.
Listen, I think I'd have to be a hater if that happened. But no, seriously, there's a lot going on in that locker room. Obviously, I mentioned before they lost. They're missing Dayball, right? And that's clear. Josh is not making good decisions.
They fired the OC today, Ken Dorsey.
First of all, to me, that's irrelevant. You got to look at the head coach. You hired him. You fired him after 6 games, right? That's unacceptable. Or excuse me, after 10 games. That's unacceptable. You hired him, right? You took over you got rid of Leslie Frazier last year. You took over the defensive calls, right? You gave up, 24 points to the Broncos, right? One of the worst teams in the league. You're making them look like a playoff team now, potentially, right? And you're supposed to be a Super Bowl contender. So my issue is with the whole organization, right? Yeah. Because guess what? They have not fixed the offense. I kept on mentioning, what are the Buffalo Bills without STEFON DIGGS? He only got 5 targets, 3 receptions for 36 yards, and they lost, right? So if I'm STEFON DIGGS, of course I'm pissed. Because if we're going to lose, hey, get me the ball. Yeah. Right? So you're throwing all of these interceptions, right? That interception at the half, right? And first of all, that defense is banged up, and they're playing their tails off, right? Because when you break it down, Josh gave him the 3 points at the end of the half, another turnover above midfield.
Yep.
So gave him 10 points.
Yeah.
Right? And in a 24-22 loss, and then the disaster of a field goal, having 12 men on the field at the end. So there's so many issues that I have with
coaching.
that team.
That's 100%.
And so that's what I'm saying. It's coaching. It's the decision making. Who you hire as the offensive coordinator. Guess what? They could have went and got Kellen Moore. Right? If you wanted a big time offensive coordinator, how come? The Chargers hired him in 2 days.
Yeah.
Where were the Buffalo Bills during those conversations if you really wanted to fix your offense, right? So you have talent, but it's the scheme is not working well.
Sure.
And I think there's a lot of problems going on in Buffalo. Obviously, it starts with the head coach. It starts with Josh first and second, but I'm highly concerned. They don't look like a playoff team. Their window has closed.
It's consistency.
But you know what? So here's the difference. The Buffalo Bills have stayed the same, and everyone else has gotten better.
Sure.
Right? You know, the Bengals have been who they are.
We'll talk about them later.
Right? But the Browns have gotten better.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The Ravens are finally healthy.
Yeah.
Right? The Chiefs aren't going anywhere. And out of nowhere, look out for those C.J. Stroud Texans.
I know.
Right? So you know what? You might not have the room, right, to have all of these mistakes. And guess what? Hey, the Dolphins might not be able to beat a good team, but they're beating all the bad ones.
Yep.
Right?
They're going to win that division.
They're right now. Hey, so I think somebody said that.
Yeah.
Did somebody say wait, say that again?
Yes, you did say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just making sure. Right? But listen, I'm concerned about Buffalo. I put Josh Allen hesitantly in my top 5 quarterbacks because of his past production. But at the end of the day, my biggest concern was his decision making and what is he without STEFON DIGGS, and can he make the guys around him better?
Sure.
And that is the biggest question that I have. Right now, you look at this young quarterback in C.J. Stroud. He's elevating Noah Brown, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, right? He's making them look. Mind you, these are 5th, 6th round picks.
Sure.
He's making look like all-star players.
Tank Dell, though, I will say, though, was also like good in college, very prolific playmaker. But yes, obviously the size was a big thing with him. But yeah, so coming in, he definitely had the playmaking abilities, but at the end of the day, playmakers are only as good as the guys that are getting them the ball, and you have to be able to deliver them the ball on a consistent basis. I agree with pretty much everything you said. The biggest concern for me, too, is with the Bills. I actually genuinely like head coach Sean McDermott. He's a wrestling guy. Comes from my type of a culture, too, as well. And when he first got there, all the Bills did was improve. And you really didn't have the merit to go and fire him for any reason, even based off of last year. But this year, unfortunately, it looks like this might be the make or break type year. I mean, the Bills right now have to go on an improbable run, especially considering the end of their season schedule. I mean, they're 5-5 right now. We talked about this last week. I mean, minimum. It seems like in the AFC, you're going to need a minimum of 10, if not 11 wins to get yourself into the playoffs. And I just don't know, based on the ending of their schedule, that they've got the Cowboys, they've got the Dolphins one more time, they've got the Chiefs, they've got the Eagles. I mean, those are 4 very tough games right there. I mean, there's no way you're going 4-0 in all those games. Yeah. So, I mean, it's like you have to hope at worst you go 2-2 in those situations, and then you can win out on those other 3. And maybe you're kind of on the outside looking in right now.
But here's the thing:
it's gonna be tough for them.
I don't think Sean McDermott is a bad coach.
Neither do
right?
I.
But we talked about this, right? In-game adjustments. Right, coaching, right? So we had a conversation about the Steelers, right?
We did.
And what did you say? They're frauds. They're the worst 6-3 team
it's
ever.
Amazing that
right?
they're 6-3.
And what was my response? Coaching.
Sure.
Coaching is the difference. So what is McDermott doing to make Josh Allen a nudge better, right? I get it. You took over the defense. That wasn't the problem.
Sure.
The problem, I want you to invest more time in the offense and fixing Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I want to see as the head coach, because that's what you need. How do you, yes, it's not hard to get STEFON DIGGS in the game.
Sure.
But how do you get consistency out of Gabe Davis, right? Yes, you've accumulated a lot of yards.
You want to talk about Jekyll and Hyde.
Yes.
That is Gabe Davis.
Now, James Cook, you've accumulated a lot of yards.
He ran
top
well
10.
last night, too.
Listen, he's top 10, top 7 in rushing yards. But guess what? It's not in the impactful moments, right? I don't think anybody really thinks they've had that much production in the running game because it hasn't been meaningful enough.
Or consistent.
or consistent.
Yeah.
So that's my issue with Buffalo. And listen, at this moment, they're going to miss the playoffs because of the Texans.
The final thing I'll say about Josh Allen is I think that Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence, important little learning thing off of both of them. When you saw Trevor Lawrence that first year, it looked like he might have been a bust. First overall pick. The coaching obviously wasn't there with Urban Meyer. I mean, it was just kind of it was kind of an S show with Urban Meyer there. All of a sudden, fast forward, you bring in Collins, okay, a Super Bowl winning coach, and it's like night and day. Trevor Lawrence all of a sudden looks like the guy. Well, you look at Josh Allen in those years that he had Dable, he looked fantastic. The turnovers were significantly cut down. Okay, he looked like that type of quarterback. And I'm not saying that the talent hasn't still been there, okay, but the decision making, you can see a drastic difference from pre-Dable to post-Dable.
Can I point out that decision making?
Sure.
So if I'm not mistaken, Josh Allen, 2,600 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions.
I hear you.
C.J. Stroud, right, only has 2 interceptions with about 12 touchdowns. What's that reminding me of? I'm not comparing them. I'm not saying he has this level.
Better than that.
Right? I don't think he has this level of talent, but right now he's reminding me of Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers would throw 35 touchdowns and 4 interceptions.
Sure.
That's how C.J. Stroud is playing. So
15-2, by the way.
Right. Oh, see? Look at that.
15-2 is outstanding.
Outstanding. And mind you, that is a rookie team.
I know.
Right? And
a lot of young players.
And I've said this before. Right, most games are loss versus won.
Yeah.
And the Buffalo Bills continue to lose games, right? And they're beating themselves. And that's the biggest problem with Buffalo, right?
Well, and again, more games are lost than are won. And again, you know what? Shout out to the Broncos. Did they play the greatest game? No. But they made the plays when they needed to. They didn't make as many mistakes. And shout out to Russell Wilson, man. He's been catching a lot of heat the last, year and a half, almost 2, between his last year in Seattle and then obviously that last debacle of a year that was in Denver. I mean, for Denver to start off the season the way they did, the 70-point game to Miami, I mean, everyone's just sitting there piling on them. And all of a sudden, look at them. They're 4-5. Their defense has played significantly better. Russell Wilson has played pretty good all year. And Sean Payton is starting to figure that team out a little bit, consistently going into it with Devontae Williams. And some receivers are starting to come out as well.
Yes, offensively, they've looked nice. They've looked solid. But I got to go to the defense. Right? The defense have looked tremendously better.
Sure.
Right? I won't lie. I was saying fire the defensive coordinator. I was the guy that was saying that. Hey, he's been keeping them in the games now. But I do want to say, look at the Dolphins. Those same Denver Broncos, the Dolphins put up 70 points. Mm-hmm. The Bills struggled to put up 22 points and get STEFON DIGGS more than 5 targets. That's a problem.
Well, I'm happy for the Broncos. They're just in terms of Peyton and Wilson seem to kind of figure out and finding some common ground. And Sean Payton seems to be discovering, like, oh, we've got some weapons on this team. We've got some guys we can use. And Javonte Williams starting to really look like his former self again, the young self pre the knee injury. So it's good to see for them. The other game that I know you and Shawnee obviously want to talk about, I don't really want to talk about it just because on the other side of things. But listen, first of all,
where are you going with this?
Hats off to the Cowboys, okay?
You bring up the Cowboys?
I am.
You're going to compliment them?
That's the...
your stud of the week. Oh, I got you. Keep going.
He's
Go ahead.
not... I'm sorry, there's not going to be a Dallas Cowboy that's my stud of the week. You don't get that for beating up on the Giants. Listen, I am a Giants fan. They are bad right now. Okay? But I will say this about the Dallas Cowboys, okay? There is no one that looks better playing against bad teams than Dallas Cowboys. They really look the part. They look like bullies. That's where so many people like you and Shoney
I disagree with you.
You guys
right
are probably
there, I disagree with you.
You think you're going to the Super Bowl now.
I'll name a better team that could beat up bad teams.
Who?
The Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think they're both good at it. They're both good at beating up
They'll drop 70
teams.
on you,
sure.
Literally.
But listen, Dak has balled out the last 2 games. There's no doubt about that. I'm sure the Cowboys fans want to hear me say it.
Give him some praise.
Dak played great, okay? He played a phenomenal game. CeeDee Lamb, okay, is entering that top 10, maybe even now top 5 wide receiver conversation.
150
yes.
yards.
Now, again, my only thing is, okay, now do it against the elite teams of the NFL. The teams that if you want to go to the Super Bowl, you're going to have to beat. Do it against the Niners. Do it against the Eagles. And win the games, okay? So, but listen. Hats off to Dallas. They played a tremendous game. My Giants, okay? This is coming from the heart. It's been really tough the last couple of weeks to sit here and make it through these games. I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't made it through. Like, by the end of the games, I just can't watch anymore. Wellington Mara family of the Giants. You made a speech prior to bringing in this new regime that what you have been doing.
I'm just going to sit back and listen.
Yeah, no.
I'm just going to sit back and listen, ladies and gentlemen.
But you had made a speech saying that, what you had been doing up to that point wasn't good enough, okay? The track record had stood by it, okay? So you had to bring in a new set of eyes, a new regime to open this up, okay? All I ask is, please let that regime now assume full control, okay? This is not even me trying to pile on a Daniel Jones situation. You essentially bid against yourself to bring him back to the team. That has ended up in a disaster.
$40 million.
I am not even going to blame Daniel Jones for the way this team is performing because across the board, so many things. He hasn't been the solution, but he hasn't been the only problem. The offensive line...
The most expensive problem.
The offensive line has been banged up all season, though. Saquon missed multiple games, too, as well. They don't have elite receiving talent.
I got to stop you right there. Listen, I was going to let you go, but then you just lost me. Because Tyrod Taylor had that same crappy offensive line, right? And they were winning, right? They
1-1.
It's not a losing record. It's not a losing record.
But all I'm saying is he had the same amount of games as Daniel Jones.
But guess what? And in 2 games, he had the same amount of touchdowns as Daniel Jones.
Okay.
Right? So, again, I'm going to let you do your thing, but I got a problem with that statement because that same crappy offensive line that everyone is hating on, everyone is saying that Daniel Jones needs a 5-star offensive line, right? Tyrod Taylor, a journeyman, was having success with. So go ahead and continue.
Well, again, Tyrod Taylor, former starter. And again, if we were to throw Tyrod Taylor into the same circumstances to start off the season, maybe you get one more win, maybe. The Giants are a disaster, and it's mainly on the offensive side of the ball. On defense, they've got some playmakers. They have a young Dexter Lawrence, okay, cornerstone. They have Kayvon Thibodeau, cornerstone, top 5 in sacks right now. They have some young corners who are taking their lumps, but they're going to learn. That's what that position calls for at times. Pinnock is a nice player. I'm not worried about the defense. This offense is bad. It's 2023, and they cannot score 20 points in a game. Like every other offense in the league is at least finding a way to be around or above 20 points. So the Maras, I ask you, I plead with you, as a long-standing Giants fan, it's the only team I've ever rooted for since I started watching football religiously. Please, get out of the way. Let Shane and Dable handle things. Let them do the job. Whoever they want to draft, let them draft. However they want to build this team, let them do it. Because I'm sorry, with all due respect, I know you've owned this organization for a long time, but your track record of, I like this guy, and this guy's our type of guy, it's just not cutting it anymore. And the only reason I say this is because I know that it was not fully up to the regime that is in right now to make that decision to go and sign Jones. And if anything, if you're going to sign Jones looking at it right now, the only consistent player on this offense has been Saquon Barkley. I was a guy who argued against paying the running back. But the way things are looking at now, you should have just let Jones
$2 more million, ladies
either
and gentlemen.
Either pick up the 5th-year option or let him walk or let the league decide what his value is rather than essentially bidding against yourself and put something in Saquon's pocket at the least. So all I'm saying is I'm pleading. Maras, this is Giant fans all over, okay? But I've actually got somewhat of a platform to say to you now, please step aside and let the new regime do what they need to do to get a competitive product out on the field. Because I don't know how much longer I can watch this.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, he's turning red. He's turning red.
It's upsetting, man.
Take a break.
It's upsetting now.
Now, here's the difference between him and I, right? Giants fan, I am not upset at all. At all. You want to know why? You want to know why?
Because of the high draft pick.
Exactly, baby. Now, if you go win another game, I got a problem because I want that first overall pick.
I got a bunch of my friends who
I want that first overall pick. Please, Giants fan, if you want me to beg, I will beg. Do not win another game. Bring Caleb to New York, right? You want success? You want to be happy for the next 15 years? You want to be a happy Giants fan? Continue to lose this year. Sacrifice 1 year for the next 15, ladies and gentlemen, right? Let's get Daniel Jones out of here, right? So we can be successful. Reset the clock. That's always been my argument. Daniel Jones is not worth it, right? Reset the clock. Let's go get some offensive weapons and let's get a quarterback that could make the surrounding cast better. And right now, that is not Daniel Jones. And that $40 million could be spent a hell of a lot better in so many other places. So guess what? I'm sorry that you're so upset. But Giants fans, I am happy. continue to lose. Well, what's his name?
You're telling the Giants fans to accept
what was it?
this.
What was it? DeVito, right? What's his name?
Tommy DeVito.
Tommy
I almost
DeVito,
said Danny.
right?
I almost said
Hey,
Danny.
Tommy, hey, keep playing my boy, right? Keep playing, right? Because with you, we're not going to win, and it's okay.
Oh my goodness.
It's okay. You will be remembered and loved by guys like me because you helped get us Caleb Williams. So don't be upset.
Yeah.
Hey, help is on the way. It's on the way. Don't think about today. Think about tomorrow. Right? And that's the difference with a good general manager. Right? You look at Tampa Bay right now, they made a poor decision in not trading off pieces. You look at other teams. First of all, I'll give praise to the Cardinals, right? They traded Joshua Dobbs and they got better, right? So you know what? How close are you to a Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Are we as Giants fans closer to the Eagles or are we closer to the Patriots? And then guess what? We're closer to the Patriots. So you know what? Let's reset. Let's get ourselves a guy. Now we're probably going to draft Drake May or whatever the case is, but you know what? If we can get Caleb Williams, we Giants fans could be happy for the next 15 years.
Listen, it'll be interesting because, again, I think the only place where you and I differ is I don't think the quarterback is the reason the Giants are so bad right now. I think you could bring in a lot of quarterbacks right now, and playing behind this offensive line, I still think it would be a struggle. With the exception of maybe
I'm going to continue
three
to
or four quarterbacks.
I'm going to continue to bring this guy up, right? C.J. Stroud.
Sure.
He lost 4 offensive linemen. His 4 starting offensive linemen, he's played 3 games without.
Yep.
And guess what? Right? They have a winning record.
Yeah.
Right? So it's about the quarterback and it's about the decision making. Period.
It's not just the quarterback, though. In terms of a winning franchise, I will give C.J. Stroud the utmost respect.
Okay, fine. Okay, I'll throw C.J. Stroud out. Can I give you another guy? If we had him, we would be a better team. Are you ready? Joshua Dobbs. If we had Joshua Dobbs, we would have a better record. So don't tell me it's not about the quarterback.
I still think Dobbs would be running for his life behind this offensive line, though.
But would we be winning?
I mean, you think the Giants would have a winning record with Dobbs at quarterback?
We would be we'd be a lot more competitive.
I mean, maybe 2-3 wins. I mean,
guess what? Joshua Dobbs is not making the mistakes. If we want to have the same conversation we were just having regarding Josh Allen and turnovers and fumbles, guess what? You got Josh Allen right down the list. Right next to him is freaking Daniel Jones in terms of leading the league in turnovers.
Yeah.
Right? The only difference is at least Josh Allen is throwing touchdowns.
Yes.
Daniel Jones struggled to throw more than 15 in a year.
I hear you, man. And listen, here's the thing I've always said about Jones. It's like, I don't think he was ever set up for success. I think a lot of success in the NFL is situational. Again, let's take a guy, for example, like a Brock Purdy, right? If you put Brock Purdy on this Giants team right now, do you think they'd be that much better?
Listen, okay, that is a tough one.
That's all I'm trying to say. And I like Brock Purdy, and I think he's great in San Francisco.
Listen, I won't lie. That's a tough one because that is such a strong system, and there's a lot of talent in San Francisco.
100%.
So I have a hard time truly evaluating Brock Purdy, but let me say this. Overall, he has not made the poor decisions. So pound for pound, I would answer that question. Yes, we would be in a better position if we had Brock Purdy because he wouldn't make the mistakes. Again, I'll repeat, more games are lost.
I hear you.
Right than one. So if Daniel Jones just wasn't making the mistakes, we would be put in a better position to succeed, i.e. that's what Tyrod Taylor was doing for us. He was first read, and then he was gone, right? Yeah. And that's what...
No, he's definitely more decisive. And again, I already said, Daniel Jones to me is not the only problem, but I don't think he is the solution ultimately because I think we would have seen more by now. And to your point, yes, just even making some plays. Kyler Murray's not playing on a great team right now either, and he single-handedly made the play that goes and wins them the game. So that's, I think, the thing that I ultimately haven't seen with Jones and the injury proneness. But, all right, I've had my rant about the Giants, okay? We somewhat agree to disagree on certain things there.
Yeah, I'm just not upset about it.
I am because I want to watch my team go out and compete and be a competitive product on the field.
Stop focusing on today and think about tomorrow, man.
Well, again,
be a GM
from the business. Business side of things, I do understand.
Don't you play Dynasty Fantasy football,
do.
Right?
I do.
So are you just thinking about this year? Are you thinking about the upcoming seasons as well?
Always the future because I got two titles too. So I mean, I can already think about the future because I already got the chips. But Browns and the Ravens
Yeah,
What a game. This is your
of course
Baltimore
you wanna bring up
Ravens
this game.
right here.
Listen, all right.
Your Baltimore Ravens.
Look, I call it like I see it. Over the last 3 years, the Baltimore Ravens
Still
have
leading the division.
Right, leading the division, but they've blown 7 fourth-quarter leads over the last 3 years to lead the league.
Yeah.
So here's the
Boy,
good
Lamar, too, looked very human yesterday.
Here's the good and the bad about the Ravens, and I said this about the 49ers. The Ravens are always good for 2 games of blown leads in the middle of the season every single year. They've always done it. The most important thing about the Ravens is finishing the season healthy. The Ravens are leading the league in sacks with over 39 sacks.
They are.
They have a top 3 defense in the league. They're leading in pass defense. And so I'm very happy with their overall play. The problem with the Ravens is they don't have that stud, that
second
closer,
overall in yards, too. No,
right?
they're good. The Baltimore is no joke.
So, but you know what? I'm going to give some credit to the Browns. They capitalized versus a couple of mistakes. That game went on forever. And I think the Ravens started to, their problem is they started, hey, we got this in the bag. We're going to take our foot off the gas.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, right, they let the other team in and they lose in the final seconds off of 1 or 2 mistakes. So I'm not worried about the Ravens. When it matters, they're going to step up and they're going to be there. And guess what? You want to know the good that's going to come out of this loss is that they're going to be ultra prepared for when they play the Bengals on Thursday Night Football.
Well, so again, you bring up an interesting point because for one, yeah, I mean, it just proves the AFC North is a gauntlet this year. That division is so. The fact that the Bengals have the worst record tells you all you need to know about that division right there, and they're still above 500. If there's one thing I took away from that game, especially later on, Lamar, I think, almost didn't realize the defense that he's playing against, because he was holding on to that ball just a second too long. Got Myles Garrett on that front, okay? And that defense just in general is loaded with talent. I honestly do think, watching as many games I've had this year, Baltimore obviously statistically is right there with them, San Francisco too as well, but I really do think the Cleveland defense is the best defense in the league because they've had marginal to average type quarterback play for most of the season, and they're still 6-3 right there contending for the division.
Now listen, think about it, right? It was a 33-31 game, right?
Yeah.
And so, right, you could argue that no defensive showed up, right?
Yeah.
But guess what? They both made plays. They took advantage of turnovers.
Sure.
And it just so happens that the Ravens started off hot, but then the
shout out to
Browns,
Deshaun Watson too, 14 for 14 or 15 for 15 in the second half.
He
played.
toughed it out. He
played, man. He
showed
tough.
up for his team. Everybody's talking about his contract, and so ultimately he led his team for a win. So kudos to him that way. But I think that Browns
if he can
defense
keep
led
playing
the way.
that way, the Browns are going to be a very tough team to beat.
Agreed.
They're going to be very tough.
You guess what? The Browns are getting some momentum,
Yeah.
right? The defense you believe in. Now the offense is starting to, at least from this game, click a few.
Sure. Well, the Browns and the
49ers
49ers are both very similar to me in that the strength of their team is not necessarily their quarterback. What they're asking the quarterback to do is, hey, can you just play average and not make mistakes or be the reason that we lose? If you can do that, get the ball in the hands of our playmakers, our defense is going to give you a shot to go and win every single one of these games.
Agreed.
So I like that, the comparable. Bengals versus Texans. First of all, fantastic game. Fantastic game. CJ Stroud, we got to talk about him a little bit more. I mean, this guy's entering the MVP conversation. 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Now, he had a bunch of turnovers yesterday. I think he had 1 fumble lost and then an interception, too. So it wasn't like his best game of the year, but again, only his 2nd interception of the season. To go into Cincinnati and beat Joe Burrow, Joe Cool, my guy, okay, and my Cincinnati Bengals, who were roaring. They might be meowing a little bit right now.
Ooh,
okay, that was a tough one. Well, here's the thing about the Bengals right now is now you are on the outside looking in, and you have almost no room for error going into a very tough matchup Thursday night against Baltimore. You have very little games now that you can lose.
If they lose, your Super Bowl pick is in jeopardy.
It's in big jeopardy because, again, they go 5-5.
Do you want to renege?
I will not renege.
Get off that
I will
boat?
not renege.
Get off the meow?
I want to get into the picks because
Right.
I think that there might be a chance for you to either gain some ground or me to just shut the door on this competition altogether. Because I think going to be a great week of games. Obviously, some big games coming up, big rivalry games. But I mean, the fact that the Texans could go and make the playoffs right now, and it's not out of the realm of possibility with the remaining schedule.
Look, I mentioned it, C.J. Stroud, right? He's a baller. He's making the team better, right? That coach, D'Amico Ryan, he's a true coach, a true leader, right? So you got to give a lot of props. C.J. Stroud, he threw an interception late in the game to let the Bengals come back, right? Tie it up, and then he led the team for the game-winning field goal. There's a lot of belief within him. And again, the two biggest things I see within him right now, he's not making the turnovers, and he's making everyone around him better. A lot of props, and like I said, he is listen, Tyreek Hill is my guy, but he's starting to really be considered in that MVP category.
Well, listen, man, that's all the time we have for this first segment, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this quick break when we come to Run It Back. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Run It Back. This is segment 2, the final segment for this week. I know it's been 2 shorter shows in a row, but don't get upset, because next week we're going to have a content blasted week for you guys next week, man. Special Thanksgiving, because lots going on. I mean, next weekend.
Do it big for the holidays.
Got to do it big for the holidays. We got big-time football games coming up on Thanksgiving Day, one on Friday, and that's championship weekend. College too. So, I mean.
A little Ohio State, a little Michigan.
Yeah. I can't wait.
We got to talk about Harbaugh.
I can't wait. And we got to talk about Harbaugh and that whole thing, too.
I mean, is Michigan America's team, or is it...
Well, that's championship weekend, too, with college. I mean, you got all the major conferences.
Rivalry week?
Setting up the college football playoff.
Yep.
So don't get upset, okay? Big show next week, all right? But... a couple of games that we missed in that first segment, okay? Lions versus the Chargers. First of all, fantastic game. I mean,
great game.
Back and forth nonstop. The Chargers have seemed to somewhat find their groove on offense again, because the Lions are not like a...
Oh, wait. Who's their offensive coordinator?
Oh my God! It's Kellen Moore.
Could the Bills use an offensive coordinator?
They
like
sure
that?
could. Well, I mean, listen.
I just wanted to.
They
I
need
think
a quarterback.
smart man said that in segment 1.
A man said that. Yes. A
smart man.
Did. Yeah.
You want to run it back?
Smart.
Yo, you want to run it back?
I mean, we can always just bring out those career picks and see how smart that man really is. But, I mean, you did... Well, actually, I'm not going to spoil anything. We didn't get to the picks yet. But, no, yes, you have been mentioning Kellen Moore. And, again, we talked about that first segment, how coaching is so crucial to a quarterback's development. And clearly that's a team that, obviously is benefiting off of Kellen Moore's, aptitude. And I think the Bills do have to figure that out, as we discussed in the first segment. But that game, man, it was back and forth. But I kept finding myself watching the game, and I'm going, I just don't think the Chargers can stop the Lions. And sure enough, the Chargers go, they tie up the game, and the Lions just march right down the field. Yep. And I got to tell you, again, I think it's the fact that they weren't a playoff team the year before. They're young, still relatively, especially all their stud pieces. One of the best offensive lines in the league, though. They've got a fantastic running back tandem. The combination of Montgomery and Gibbs, I mean, that is big time. Now, I would argue that's the best 1-2 punch in the league at running back right now.
It's sort of like power and speed.
Yes, it's a great
But it's
mix.
Like power, speed with a little bit of power.
Yes. Yeah, because Jermichael Gibbs, don't get it twisted. The guy is small, but I mean, he runs hard.
Yes.
And the thing that's nice about him, too, is he can run between the tackles, he can run outside, and big threat in the passing game.
Absolutely.
And then you tack that all on with Sam Laporta. Looks like he's going to be an absolute stud.
He's a stud. He might be the best tight end out of that class, honestly.
I think he is. I think you're 100% spot on that. But then, if you go through all those names, and then you forget about, to me, the most underrated player in the NFL, Amon-Ra St. Brown. All that man does is catch for 100 yards and move the chains and keep that offense moving around the field.
8 receptions for 150 yards.
The guy just does it every single week. As long as he is healthy, he is almost a walking 100 yards. And he just doesn't get mentioned enough, I think, amongst the elite receivers. The team is legit. They went out and they win that game. In Los Angeles, too, a tough road game. Los Angeles is not like a bad team. They have talent. Does this team have a shot to be the number 1 seed in the NFC?
So listen, I just pulled up their schedule.
Okay.
Right? And based on their schedule, so like as it stands today, everybody would say the Eagles. But right, if you look at the Lions schedule, they play the Bears, should be a win. The Packers should be a win. They play the Saints.
Tough game.
Let's say it's a loss.
Okay,
right?
give that a
Let's
loss.
say it's a loss. But then they play the Bears again.
They beat them.
Another win. They play the Broncos in Detroit. So that's another win. So that's 4. Right? Then they play the Vikings, Cowboys, Vikings. Let's just say they split the Vikings.
Okay.
Right? So that's 5. Let's say they lose to Cowboys. 5 wins to where they are now, that's 12 wins.
Yeah.
right? Now the Eagles, they got a tough schedule, right? They play the Bills, they play the Eagles, and if I'm not mistaken, they also play the Bengals.
You mean the Cowboys?
No.
Eagles. Yes.
Yes.
I got you.
Yeah, so they really have a tough schedule ahead of them.
Yeah.
So based on the schedule, I like Detroit winning 12 or 13 games and possibly stealing the number 1 overall seed over the Philadelphia Eagles. And if that happens, listen, kudos to Dan Campbell and Detroit. If the playoffs have to go through Detroit, that city deserves it. And guess what? They might have a Cinderella story.
Listen, I'm a Giants fan through and through. I always will be. But I found myself, I can't help it. I'm like rooting for this Lions team. I think it's awesome. I think Jared Goff also is does not get the respect he deserves as a starting quarterback. I mean, this is a man that has been to a Super Bowl before. He was sent to Detroit to essentially to die. Yes, exactly.
Yes,
took the words right out of my
exactly
mouth.
what it was.
Like McVay looked at him and he was like, "It's not that I don't like you, but it's just you can't perform. You can't do the tasks that are necessary inside my offense." Stafford, a couple more arm angles, a little bit more athletic. Go to Detroit. Detroit's where most players kind of go to die, unfortunately. Well, not only has he not died, he is thriving there. And I mean, that team kind of goes with him too as well. The offensive line is young. That team is not going anywhere too for years to come because all those guys are still young.
Slow your horses down. So the problem with success, right, is that then you lose your offensive coordinator, and he's a good offensive coordinator. Then you lose your defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So then we'd have to see what Dan Campbell is without those offensive and defensive coordinators, which both of them should have head coaching jobs next year.
Yeah.
So this is their moment. I don't know I won't say they're Super Bowl contenders. If they get the number 1 overall seed, I'm going to take them extremely seriously because that means they only have to win 2 games to get to the Super Bowl, and that city in Detroit would be rocking, right, if that's what it took to make it to the Super Bowl. So I don't know. I'm not going to say they're ready for that stage yet, but if they get the overall seed in the NFC, watch out. They just might shock the world.
Yeah, so my only point with Detroit is, again, I don't think they're going to the Super Bowl this year either. I think they're a year away, but they're not going anywhere as a team. I think even if they lose coordinators, they have a ton of talent on that team. I think they're only going to bring in more on defense, too. Hutchinson looks like a cornerstone. He looks like he's going to be a stud. The young linebacker, Campbell, too, looks very tough, too, as well. Yeah. Drafted this past year. He looks like he could be a potential stud. Decent secondary, too, as well. They got to get younger on the defensive side.
And their secondary is hurt. So, yeah, we should give the general manager some credit. His name is slipping me right now, but he's brought in a lot of offensive and defensive talent, right? He's definitely hit on all of his picks. But as we talk about Detroit, I'm here thinking about the Chargers, right? Look at what has gone on in a 3-year time period with Detroit, and they're excelling, right? You can argue that they are a Super Bowl contender. I don't think anyone is taking the Chargers as a legitimate Super Bowl contender, and
despite all the talent they have.
At quarterback, at receiver, at running back throughout that defense. So again, what's the difference? If the offensive and defensive talent is similar, the biggest difference I look at is coaching.
100%.
Right?
Coaching
if
and culture,
you're a defensive
which comes from
coach,
the coaching, but
and your offense puts up 38 points, you should win the game.
Yeah, I agree.
But when you lose by 41, that's a problem.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm with you. And again, at some point, it just has to become... I can't even question Staley anymore. Like, Staley is what he is. The ownership has to be... How are you not looking at this going, like, do you know anything about football? Because you hired a defensive guy, and your defense is... You can't stop a nosebleed.
And listen, what I would say is not every... this regime, this ownership is not quick to fire. I think it's more about the financials than anything else. But... you know what? Listen, I think
rumors swirling that Harbaugh with this whole Michigan thing that was going on too, which we'll talk more about next week.
Listen, I'll say two things.
He might be a candidate to get there.
I'll say 2 things. If Harbaugh was to go there, he's a culture changer.
Look out!
He's an organization changer. As much as everyone
look at what he did in
San
Fran all those years ago.
Look at San Fran. And look at Michigan. Michigan is a powerhouse now, and it's all because of
my
Harbaugh,
favorite to win it all this year.
Right? So all I would say is you put him in Chargers, which has historically been a franchise that's been crappy. You put Harbaugh there, that's instant credibility.
And with Herbert.
The other guy that would bring instant credibility and make them an immediate Super Bowl contender, Bill Belichick.
Wow, hot take right there.
If
Bill Belichick coming all the way across the country.
If he parts ways with the Patriots and was to go to a team like the Chargers that already have great talent, the problem with Bill is he can't draft talent. So you go to a team with the talent, he can instill the culture. Watch out. So listen, we're not there yet.
I hear you.
But those are the two names I'd mentioned that would be a culture and organization changer.
If I were putting an order to that right now, I would actually say I would think Harbaugh is the most likely favorite. Kellen Moore would be second, and then Bill Belichick would probably be third.
Problem is he's already there, right? So you can't fire him, promote him. So unfortunately,
the way the Chargers do things, I might have to switch that. I'd actually say Kellen Moore is probably number one because they seem to go cheap on the coaching hires, and a hire in-house would be cheaper than bringing in some. You Harbaugh or Belichick, you know automatically you're at a heavy negotiating table.
Yeah.
The other game, though, I want to talk about, and it preludes something else that I'll be doing later on the show in terms of stud of the week. How about them 49ers? I got students in my school after a couple of losses watching the 49ers. They're just like, oh, Mr. Mallory, see, I told you, Brock Purdy's not good. He's no good. Really, guys? Really? Because off a bye week, off of 3 straight losses, he went into the division-leading Jaguars, and they smacked them around. Now, the defense showed up, too, as well. That Chase Young pickup is going to be huge.
Yes.
Because Bosa was just getting one-on-one, and he was getting around the edge all game.
All of a sudden, that secondary looked a hell of a lot better.
It did, because they don't got to cover for as long. 49ers look great. They look like a team that really needed that bye week. Trent Williams back out there, turning it up. Debo gets back in the game, immediately scores a touchdown. Obviously, you can see that when that team's got all its pieces, it's running, and it's well-rested, they are a formidable foe, and I think they're right back in the driver's seat.
So again, a couple of things that I mentioned. Listen, throughout the season, it's a long season. It's a heavy grind, and you're going to have slip-ups.
Yeah.
Again, last year, the Kansas City Chiefs lost to the Colts. The Colts only had 3 wins, and one of them was versus the Kansas City Chiefs. The 49ers lost 3 games in a row. Guess what? They weren't healthy. All of a sudden, they got all their weapons. They look like studs. But again, a very underrated move that you have to give Lynch credit for. He went out and got Chase Young. Right? They didn't stay the same.
They looked
went and got better.
unreal.
If I'm
They
not
looked
mistaken,
unblockable.
for a 3rd or a 4th round pick.
Yeah.
Now, again, just a simple thing I want to point out, Cowboy fans, right? The 49ers made a move to get better. All of a sudden, their defense looks tremendously better by adding 1 pass rusher for a 3rd round pick.
They also brought Wilkes. I think they brought Wilkes down to the field.
Yes.
He's not in the booth anymore.
Exactly. Well, guess what? Now that's you can coach up your guys right then and there, right? And so versus
But it's interesting because from a vantage point, having I feel like being up top, you can see things better. But to your point, maybe it was obviously the messaging was being very unclear coming through an intercom.
And listen, it's not uncommon. Obviously, the Cowboys defensive coordinator, right? He does the same thing, coaches from the box. But ultimately, I think the nice thing about having your coordinator there, again, energy, immediate adjustments. I can tell you, like, hey, coach, I'm seeing X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
You can immediately spin it and tell me how to react. And again, that's not only with the captain, right? Now the secondary could have that conversation with that defensive coordinator, right? So those are the things. And again, right?
And you can put other guys up there to tell you.
Exactly,
too, well.
right? To signal exactly what you're looking for. So again, I'm excited to see what they're going to be. That Chase Young pickup is huge. And guess what? When that team is healthy, ooh boy, they're dangerous.
No, yeah, again, to me, it puts them right back in that, the NFC contenders race. I never really thought they left. I think they just needed to get to that bye week and just get themselves healthy. Purdy looked like, too, when you watch those 2 games before the bye, looked like that concussion was definitely still lingering with those throws because the other day, he looked pretty on it.
Again, we mentioned it, right? Like, again, a concussion lingers. You can pass the protocol. It's not that difficult to pass. But the lingering effects, right? Your quickness. Judgment. Again, just think of it as being ultra tired, right?
Yeah.
And you become a little bit more forgetful. Like, hey, do I have my cell phone? Hey, you know what? Did I close the fridge, right? These little things you're just second guessing, right? That's like having a concussion.
Yeah.
And so now think about having to make quick, high-level decision-making, right, with, a 300-pound defender in your face, and you're just off of your game.
Yeah.
Right? So I think I think that was one of the things that was going on with
And my biggest takeaway for the Jags, too, is I wouldn't panic. I think the 49ers were a team, on a mission, but I think what that game did show me with the Jags is Trevor Lawrence, to me, might not quite be at that elite level yet. I think people are kind of trying to put him there. But when a game kind of gets put and thrust on his shoulders to go and make plays, he had a little bit of a tendency to kind of panic, in that game, and it showed up a little bit. I think the Jags will be fine. But to me, the Jags are right in that category. They're like Dolphins, Cowboys, Jags. I think they're kind of in the same tier in the NFL. They're very good teams, but it's like you've got to show me that you can go and beat those.
So listen, I'm gonna say this and I'm draw this comparison. Sometimes I worry about Trevor Lawrence the same way I worry about Josh Allen.
Okay.
Right, but the difference
there were a lot of turnovers yesterday.
There were a lot of turnovers, but it seems like the way he's processing the game doesn't make sense. It seems like all of a sudden, if he's playing from a lead, he looks like a superstar. But if he's playing a heavy hitter opponent, either you try to you have a great game plan and you dominate them, or all of a sudden when it's tied, that's when it starts to get hesitant. And again, I followed Trevor Lawrence when he was at Clemson. You start to look at that LSU game and some of the other national championship games. He didn't show up the best. So in those big bouts, right, with other heavy hitter AFC opponents, Trevor Lawrence has not been Superman. Yeah. He has not been the ultimate decision maker. So that's a little concern that I have, but we'll see. There's a big test coming up with the Jags real soon. Yeah. We'll talk about it during the picks.
Well, again, the talent and the skill set has always been there. It's never been a matter of ability with Lawrence.
Exactly. And that's why I said processing.
I think it's processing and then also desire, too. Like, the one quote that everybody really got on with him early on was like, football isn't like my everything. So he's just a guy who just kind of plays off pure talent. That's not something I think that any franchise probably loves to hear, because you want your best players to be the guys that are just first in, last to leave, and just all their work and dedication.
Do all the other guys feel the same thing? Is he an Andrew Luck where he's just going to get his money and leave, at 29, 30 years old?
Yeah.
That's something to watch out for.
The one
Not
thing
everyone
I would say,
plays for the love of the
the
game.
only thing I would say with Luck, though, is Luck kind of had to leave because he was getting so beat up physically.
He did.
But listen, it's something to pay attention to. Quick shout-outs, though, because a couple weeks ago, we were talking about these two teams as potential sellers at the trade deadline. All of a sudden, you got the Raiders, who are 5-5 right now, 2 wins in a row. I'd say they're probably still not making the playoffs, but they're at least in the hunt. Okay, The Vikings. The Vikings are a playoff team now.
So listen, all right. So
Big Boy Dobbs.
Big Boy Dobbs, right? He's doing his thing. Again, I want to shout out.
Shawnee Productions a big fan of Dobbs.
Big fan of Dobbs. Guess what? I'm a big fan of Brian Flores, right? Right. He really fixed that defense on the Vikings.
I like their head coach too. Kevin O'Connell.
I
like him as well.
Again, everyone always just goes to the head coach,
sure,
because he's the head coach. He gets all the credit. But guess what? I'll give O'Connor the credit for hiring Brian Flores. Right. We go to that decision making as we were talking about McDermott, right? And who you surround yourself with, right? So I definitely give him credit for that. And guess what? He's kept up a very good offensive scheme, right? When it comes to scoring points, teaching Dobbs and transitioning, going out and trading for Dobbs, going out and drafting Addison Russell. Guess what? Justin Jefferson has not been on
Jordan
the field.
Addison.
Right, yeah, sorry. Jordan Addison. When Justin Jefferson gets back on the field with that tandem with TJ Hockenson
practicing again,
in the middle. Yes, he's practicing. A hammy, you don't want to get back too early or
never rush it. Hammies are tricky.
So really excited about the Vikings. And as we talk about Dobbs, I can't sit here and think, what if Joshua Dobbs were on the New York Jets? Right? What would they look like?
Yeah.
Right? What would they look like? What would they be? All of a sudden, you take a look at the Raiders. They switched their quarterback, right? Got rid of, Jimmy G, right? Brought in the rookie, and all of a sudden, right, the team is playing with more confidence, with more swag, and they're doing the damn thing. So, you know what? Shout outs to those teams.
Nah, man, absolutely. And again, one more shout out too. Again, I was saying this before the game, before we even started the show today. I don't know how they're 6-3, but they are. I think, you keep alluding to coaching. The Steelers do lead the league in turnover differential. They're tied with the Bengals, so that's one way they do it.
Didn't you mention they're almost like bottom 10 in every other category?
Oh my God, they are bottom 10 in rush offense, bottom 10 in pass offense, bottom 10 in rush defense, bottom 10 in pass defense.
But number one in
I have
what?
to see them in text. They're number one in turnovers. So it just goes to show you, when you can turn teams over and you have good coaching. I mean, watching that game against the Packers the other day, I was just like, does any team want to win this game? Like, I just kept waiting for some, like the Steelers. You kept getting drives over. Fourth quarter, it was just back and forth, 3 and outs, back and forth.
And listen, don't let them get that offense right. Don't let them get that offense right. Najee Harris has been looking better.
Jalen Warren
looks really good.
That guy's a stud.
Can you get George Pickens the ball? Just get him the ball.
Gotta get
Just
that
get
guy
him the ball
more. You do. But listen, before we go into the picks, stud of the week. Who you got?
Listen, I've talked about this guy often, right? Listen, ton of receivers had 150 yards, so on and so forth, right? Shout out to Brandon Cook, shout out to CeeDee Lamb, shout out to St. Brown, right? Noah Brown, right? All of these guys did really well. But C.J. Stroud is my stud of the week, right? At the end of the day, he, like I said, I didn't compare him, but the way he's playing and his decision making, only 2 turnovers and 15 touchdowns, reminds me of Aaron Rodgers, right? In that decision making, the way he's slinging the ball down the field with 400 plus passing yard games, that reminds me of a Patrick Mahomes, right? The way he's making everyone better, right? Listen, I'm not gonna do it, but I could make the argument that that's the MVP.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So, but we talked about Daniel Jones. We talked about all these other quarterbacks. We talked about Josh Allen. What that kid is doing with that Texans organization right now is amazing. They all believe in him, and that is my stud of the week. And right now, he's the MVP and the future face of the league.
Wow. All right.
He's got to do it again.
Let's
He's got to do
see.
it again. But as of right now, in the moment, right, they were 3-13-1, and now they're at the playoffs started today. They're in it.
Yeah. No, listen, he's balling out. I don't know if he's going to end up winning MVP. We'll see. We'll see how the season
Politics are in that.
See how the season finishes out. But
man,
there's no denying the young man is balling out right now. But don't call it a comeback. People were trying to call this guy Mr. Irrelevant, and he's not that good. See, he's not that good. See, he is that good because he's leading the league in QBR. He's leading the league in QB passer rating, and he just went into the Jacksonville Jaguars' home, stomped all over it, stomped on their couches, knocked down their TV, ate up all the food, and guess what?
Jesus!
The Jags just sat there and they watched, and they said, "Okay, are you done now, sir? You can leave now,
Oh
please."
my God!
Yeah,
That's aggressive take.
Brock Purdy. 19 for 26, 296 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 148.9 passer rating. What a division leader in their house. I got Brock Purdy.
I mean, listen, we all get our own studs of the week, so I'm not going to throw any shade against your stud of the week, but maybe you should have given it to the 49ers defense.
I mean, their defense was great too.
Defense?
Did you just dab?
Right? It's a defense.
Oh, thank goodness.
Right?
The dab hasn't been cool since like 2008.
Maybe you should do it for your students. Right?
I actually have tried to do it once. They're like, no, stop. I have, yeah. I didn't even do it right. There you go. But listen, quick little announcement.
Goodness.
Quick little announcement.
Goodness.
Yes, I know I did it
Say
wrong.
it again.
That's how much
Do it again.
There you go. So the week 9 winner was me. I went 8-6. You went 7-7. But
It's hot in here.
you rebounded. Week 10, you were the winner. Congratulations, sir, with the same record. 8-6, I went 7-7. So we go into this week, the career standings now. We just have to make sure we remind people. They don't want to forget, it's important. I get comments
It's not about
this.
how you start, man. It's about how you finish, man. We're only halfway
Shane
through.
Mallory with a 92-59 record. And then we've got Mr. DaCosta coming in with 84-67. So
Listen,
he's back to that 8 game.
let's jump right into it because guess what? This first game, I already know where you're going, and you could guess where I'm going.
All right,
But
Cincinnati, Baltimore.
You want to just...
Cincinnati's got to have it, and they're going to go get it.
All right, well, listen, I'm rocking with B-More, all right? I'm
Alrighty.
rocking with B-More. Like I said,
Split
the
already.
worst thing that could have happened, right, to the Ravens is that they lost to the Browns. They're going to come in, and they're going to whoop some Bengals AWS. What did you say earlier?
AWS.
Right?
Is that a new spelling of the word?
What did you say earlier, right? Meow?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think they're going to start roaring again.
Alright.
They need this game. They really need this game. I don't love picking them too, the fact that it's a short weekend. They're going to Baltimore, but I got to roll with my guys.
Go ahead.
Pittsburgh at Cleveland. Who you got?
Who you got?
I just picked the first one. I picked
I picked
Cincy.
the first one. All
No,
right,
I said
okay.
Cincy.
Hey, I'm rocking with Tomlin. I'm rocking with the Steelers. There's every reason that you should pick the Browns right now. Better defense, right? Deshaun playing better. I am going to believe in that team, right? They're both 6-3. Mike Tomlin will pull through.
As much as I like the way Cleveland is playing, I actually have to agree with you.
Oh!
The simple reason is I think two things. I think, one, the way Pittsburgh matches up with them. And while I'm not necessarily against the Browns head coach, I just have to trust what I see in Tomlin and winning these type of divisional games. So
that one surprises me.
I'm going to go with the Steelers.
Myles Garrett.
I was thinking about it, and trust me, I love me some Myles Garrett.
Okay.
Chicago Bears at Detroit. I think that one's pretty easy. I mean, I'm going Detroit.
You're going Detroit?
I'm going Detroit.
Yeah. No questions there.
Yeah, I mean, Detroit, that's a talent mismatch.
Yeah, no questions.
Chargers at Green Bay. I'll go the Chargers. I like their offense.
I'm rocking with the Chargers, too.
Okay. Vegas at Miami. A couple weeks ago, you would have thought this was just going to be a blowout type game. It's in Miami, though. I think Shawnee mentioned that Ashan is back this week. I like.
So you gonna jump on that train? You jumping on that train?
I mean,
I'm on the train. So if you want to jump on it,
I'll jump on the train for them to lose first round of the playoffs or something like that. Yeah, sure.
Hey,
maybe they'll make it to the division.
Didn't you say they're gonna win the division and somebody picked that correctly?
You did.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Just making sure.
Yes, sure. I picked the Eagles to win the other divisions. So you're picking Miami, I assume.
Yes.
Okay. Oh my God, New York Giants at Washington. I hate to do this, but I have to pick Washington.
That's obvious, right? Okay. The Giants do not win another game.
Yeah. Dallas at Carolina. I'm going Dallas.
Easy one.
Sorry, it's just too much of a talent mismatch.
I mean, remember, right? You're a Dak lover now, right?
Yeah, something like that. Listen. I am not a Dak hater.
I didn't say that.
I
said you were a Dak lover now, right?
I am a truth teller. They even brought up the stat the other day. He's 17-28 in his career against playoff teams. So, I mean, in the regular season, that's tough. I assume you're going Dallas, too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, kind of interesting one, but I still... Tennessee at Jacksonville. I'll take the Jags.
I'm on the Jags as well.
Yeah, Tennessee...
Get right game.
Yeah,
quarterback.
I agree.
Will Levis.
Here's one that I think we might split on. Arizona at Houston. Who you got?
C.J. Stroud.
Alrighty. I think that the Texans somewhat come back to earth. I still think they're a young team. I like what I saw out of Kyler Murray this past week. Man can still scramble. You can talk all about his Call of Duty habits, his lack of studying, but at the end of the day, when that man gets on the field, he makes magic happen. I like the Cardinals in the upset here.
Lock of the week.
Tampa Bay at San Fran. Taking San Fran.
Yeah, another beatdown. Baker Mayfield, come on.
Ooh, kind of an interesting game here. Jets at Buffalo Bills.
How
do you pick that one?
Oh, Jesus.
I'll go first for you anyway. I'm taking Buffalo. This is a must win. It's in Buffalo. I'm sorry, but what I've seen out of the Jets the last couple of weeks, I think the Jets have kind of somewhat come back down to earth. As great as their defense is, you can only be on the field so many times before eventually you cross them. Now, it is a tough matchup for the Bills historically, the Jets defense, but I just feel like the Bills have to find a way to win this game. And they will.
If you can't beat the Broncos,
oh wow,
I'm gonna pick the Jets.
You're picking the Jets.
I'm gonna rock with the Jets.
And you were just saying before the pre-show, you were like, "Dang Jets."
Zach Wilson. I mean, Jesus Christ. But I mean, listen, I've been rocking with them all season. I think that defense is a stud defense, right? Like if you look at their games, they've barely been giving up 17 points. Even against the Raiders, right? The offense couldn't get a first down. Yeah. So I'm going with the Jets.
Seattle at the Rams.
Seattle? You going Rams?
Oh, man. Didn't the Rams beat the Hawks up in the beginning of the year? But I'm going Seattle.
All right.
Especially because they don't know who's starting at quarterback. Minnesota at Denver.
Where are you going with this one?
That's a tough game. But I think, man, both teams are playing well. I feel like I trust Minnesota just a little. Yeah, you know what? Actually, I'm going to go Denver. The way they're playing, they're
rocking with Joshua Dobbs, baby.
All righty. Finally, the game of the week, without a doubt, Super Bowl rematch. The Philadelphia Eagles take their 8-1 show to the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead. Take it away, sir. Who you got?
I'm rocking with the Chiefs, right? They're coming off of a bye. Listen, I've picked against them. I'm worried about that offense at times, but I'm rocking with the Chiefs.
So we split on 3. Let's still afford this. I haven't picked against them all year. Philly has kind of been like my my like ugly duckling darling because I have to pick them just off of the divisions and whatnot.
Yep.
The way both teams have been playing, I would say I lean slightly Philly. But I'm taking the Chiefs because they're at home. They don't lose at Arrowhead. And Philly, until you become to be the man, you got to beat the man.
Woo!
You got to show me that you can beat them, all right? I'm taking the Chiefs. Don't pull on Superman's cape.
All right, listen. Hey, I'm not mad at that.
I got the Chiefs. That wraps up a fantastic week of football. Guys, before we go, please don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe on all our major platforms.
Yo, Cowboys fans, jump in those comments.
Cowboys
He's not
fans,
showing
please,
you guys the love.
please.
He's not keeping it real. He's not keeping it real.
I am keeping it real. I'm the one guy who sits there and points out that every year they play bully ball against a below 500
Dak
teams.
throw for 400 yards, and he's not your stud of the week.
He's not my stud of the week. Sorry, man. I like my studs of the week go and beat division leaders in their house. Take their lunch. Jump on their couch. But that's all the time we have. We will be back next week when we see you. My co-host is
Ricky DaCosta.
And I am Shane Brown. We'll see you next week when we
run it back.
Run it back.